hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the virtual panel discussion on entrepreneurial resilience, jointly organized by StartCentral and Smart Innovation Center. So StartCentral is an open innovation platform by A-Star to inspire and educate aspiring technopreneurs on venture creation and growth, as well as to help startups and startups talent with their journey. SMART is an MIT research enterprise in Singapore with 5 interdisciplinary research groups and an innovation center. The Innovation Center guides and nurtures scientists and engineers to move their innovations towards commercialization. As you all know, being a startup entrepreneur is not an easy task. So the pandemic situation last year has made things even more challenging. Besides having strong motivation and passion, resilience is one of the keys to overcome the odds in startups, to be able to bounce back from hardship and keep moving forward. So today, we are honored to have Dr. Krishna Kumar, Senior Associate Director from Smart Innovation Center, to moderate the panel discussion. An entrepreneur himself, Dr. Krishna has extensive experience in startup and entrepreneurial environment, and he is now focusing in helping to commercialize technology supported through the SMART grants. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to Dr. Krishna to introduce the two panelists today. Dr. Krishna.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining us on today's panel discussion. Today's discussion is as much about entrepreneurial resilience as it is about persistence and the ability to stay true to your vision and managing through a varied set of challenges that you face on your journey. So interestingly, today I have two individuals whom I personally have had the pleasure of working with. Both have been recipients of the Smart Innovation Grant, and they have started off as researchers, developing technologies that they have been working on towards commercialization, and have, in fact, one of them launched a company just pre-COVID, and the other one launched a company in the midst of COVID. So no better folks to talk about resilience and persistence. Let me welcome first Mohit. Mohit is a researcher who started off his technology development journey in SMART. He launched a company pre-COVID, I think around the middle of 2019, and in all the spaces in travel. And you know what happened when COVID hit the world, right? All of travel has come to a standstill, but he stays resilient and true to his vision by staying in the space and innovating on the way. So we'll hear from him as he moves on forward, and what he has done during this period to make sure that he stays relevant to the market. The other individual that I would like to introduce is Anton. Anton is a researcher from A-Star. He has worked for a long period of time in trying to develop technologies and sensors that help in identifying food freshness. And during the innovation grant, he went through a pivot to make sure that the technology is relevant to what the market needs, and has launched a company in the midst of COVID. So we will ask him about his journey in terms of what he did in terms of understanding the needs of the market and how he went through the pivot, and also about why the decision to launch in the midst of COVID. So without much ado, let me start by asking both Mohit and Anton to start by giving us a brief description of their technology, what they're doing, and where they are today. And then we'll get deep into a formal discussion on how they have navigated their journey so far. So Mohit, do you want to go first?
Sure. So thank you for the generous introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm the founder of Escape, which is it's a travel search engine, slightly different from the traditional flight search engine that you see like Skyscanner or Kayak. What it does is, let me put up a picture. So traditionally, you look at flights one destination at a time. What Escape helps you is it shows you the best flights to pretty much every city in the world at once, and helps you search all the cities at once by comparing each city across like 50, 100 data points, like weather, safety, COVID-19 restrictions, etc. So before I tell you about Escape, let me tell you how we got there and a little bit about our background. So at Smart, we had developed this technology called Data Collider. And what Data Collider did was it would combine big data sets in a way that is easy to extract insights. These data sets had a spatio-temporal nature, and they were very large, like terabytes of data. And what we did was we built an interface that helps you easily combine them across these two axes and quickly visualize them in a very compelling way. So what our initial plan was to build like a all-purpose general tool for data analytics. And we tried to go to market with that, but that didn't work out. So then what we did was try to find a very smaller use case and tried a B2C approach where we thought, okay, why not we use this for flights data? Because at any given point of time, there are like about 1 billion deals available to an average traveler because there are so many cities, there are so many carriers all competing with each other. So it's not easy to find a deal, and there is always a deal out there. So we took this approach, like a dashboard approach, and brought it to travel inspiration, where you can get to compare and filter all the things that you do with big data, but this time you're doing it for travel planning. So we created a product, and we had an MVP, and we put it on Reddit, and it went viral. It hit the front page. It got covered by various publications in different languages, like 7 to 10 languages. So we knew we had something here. So we started adding more features, turned it into a proper product, and added more travel agents, more sources. So currently we have travel data from pretty much every airline and every online travel agent. So it was going very well, and we were around February 2020, just before COVID, we were about doing 200,000 users per month. And then the worst happened, something that we never expected. And we lost 90% of our traffic within just 2-3 weeks. All countries started going into lockdown one by one, and then came the border restrictions. And people, even though they were not allowed and even afraid to travel. And we were focusing specifically on international leisure travel, which was hit the worst. It's still not recovered. So what we did was launch another product to basically stay relevant, to keep the team motivated. It is called COVID Controls. What COVID Controls does is that it shows, it's like a COVID-19 dashboard, which is geared towards travel. So it shows you all the lockdown information, which services are open, are there any restrictions, the local government curfews, border restrictions, quarantine, masks, everything that a traveler needs to know before going to another country. So we built this during the pandemic, during the lockdown, and it went viral again. It again got covered in Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Forbes. Currently, it's doing almost like the same traffic as Escape was doing before COVID, which is about 100 to 200,000 users per month. And now that is helping us also make money, because we are selling that data to travel agents who want to help their users understand the restrictions better. So, and it's also serving as a traffic source for Escape. So it worked out pretty well because it helped us stay motivated during COVID. And at the same time, we built something that helped us make some money and survive. And thanks to COVID Controls, we also got some work from other travel companies. So we got a contract where now we are also having a B2B arm to Escape, where we're helping other travel companies build travel technology. And that again led to another contract, and now we actually are now bigger than before COVID. So now our team is bigger now, and we are actually making revenue without raising any money. So before COVID, we were completely unprepared, but this crisis was kind of like a boon, sort of, because we learned a lot of things. We learned how to make money, we learned how to survive, and so on. And Escape still lives on, and we hope that as soon as the pandemic is over, we start, pushing it all cylinders. We launched our apps, everything during COVID. So we are ready for when the pandemic's over. So it's been quite a journey, and happy to talk more about it later on.
Thank you, Mohit. It's a very interesting journey where you've actually created optionality right throughout, right? The moment you hit a crisis, you create multiple options so that you can traverse the crisis. Let me now move to Anton and request him to share a bit about his background and his journey towards where he is today. Anton?
Good morning, Krish. Thank you for introduction. And I used to work with Krish for like 2 years during the SMART project. It was very good experience for me. And I would like to start from like where I started from even before having an idea to starting a company, and how it's grown to the company, to idea, to moving technology from lab to market. I think we started around 9 or 10 years ago with the idea of developing a smart tattoo. It's kind of implantable human tattoo where like each ink responsible for different physicochemical parameters or properties of a human body. But because it was like way too complicated, we slightly moved from smart tattoo to implantable biomarkers for monitoring like physiological changes in small aquatic animals. And then, if I remember correctly, it was difficult to get a funding. And then we started thinking where we can repivot this technology and towards the like application. And we found that the food area 5 years ago was like not very occupied and was like pretty empty, and not many groups works in this direction. And we start to thinking of developing sensor for monitoring the food freshness. And we had a few projects. We went through a few trials with the companies, but suddenly we figure out then, and actually we get approached the SMART, and the SMART trust, belief in our technology, in our team, and actually we've been happy to get the funding from SMART. And the main changes happens during this project, because we start with the food freshness, and then we start to do intensive market research and look not only inside Singapore, but also outside Singapore. And once we start to talk with the companies outside Singapore, we figure out that while we're developing this technology, there is a new big market change happens. And we moved, and the market change was not in the sensing technologies, it was in the packaging. Because in the last few years, it's like a lot of companies moved from the traditional like airtight packages moved towards vacuum and air modified packages, which actually helps to increase the shelf life drastically. And the problem which we figure out, that everybody started asking us, like, guys, if you can measure like physicochemical properties of food, can you measure integrity of the package? Because as a company, we don't really care about the freshness inside the package. What we care is actually if the package is still tight and still sealed in the supply chain. Because once the seal is gone and there is air intake inside the package, food cannot be considered fresh, like in terms of the supply chain anymore, and has to be removed from the supply chain. And actually, I think like in the middle of our smart project, we start repivoting and looking for improving our technology and try to develop the sensors to monitor the package integrity. And I think just a few months before the end, we managed to deliver our first like laboratory prototype. And then we start to trying to engage the companies, try to see if the people are interested and so on. And then actually we came to COVID and then the COVID started changing all the plans and so on. But luckily for us, the COVID and all the restriction kick out a very interesting time, because a lot of people locked in their apartments started using the online grocery shopping. And I think how like initially we didn't realize how we related to it, but we figured out that because all the packaging, like all the food now start to delivering, especially in tropical countries, to home, a lot of companies start to raising the question about the quality of cold supply chain, especially like door-to-door delivery. And if you look on the market, there is no technologies which allows you to track your package from manufacturing down to your customer. And that's exactly where technology nicely fits to the market. And we start receiving a lot of requests for trials and further improvements. And that was actually for us a good time to incorporate the company and start a new journey. Basically now we quit the lab and moving towards the new journey. Initially, we thought that it will be much easier. And we expecting that once we quit, like a lot of people start to offering us investment money, but we figure out that it's maybe even more difficult than working in a lab in the science. Yes, and what I want to add a little bit more, that 70 to 80% of this decision was not only about the market interest and the technology readiness, but also the team which we managed to create, because otherwise it will be impossible without the rest of our team. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anton. It's good to understand the flow of where you started and where you are today. But I want to shift the gears a little bit and get you to focus a little bit more on your personal journey. And maybe Mohit, you can start by talking us through as to what made you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur, because you were working in an organization, you were doing research, you saw technology, you saw the data collider opportunity, it didn't come to much. But what made you decide to move into being a startup founder?
I think the thing is that when you're in research, theory and practice sound very similar. Like for researchers, practice is like there's something they can model. But actually, in reality, theory and practical is very different things, right? So all the things that I had done, I really wanted to see things in action. I wanted things to get implemented. So before this, I was part of the Future Cities Laboratory. And there I modeled the Singapore ERP system. Okay. we were trying out like a distance-based ERP charging system. Okay, it never got implemented, but it was a very interesting idea because it's better than just paying per gantry. So I was really curious that I need to build something that eventually gets implemented and gets to the real world. So that was my biggest motivation. Yeah.
So you decided to take responsibility for getting it out rather than giving it to somebody else? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I should do it myself, right? Because it's like 90% of research probably never see the light of the day, is what I heard. And I think it's true. I've been in work with ETH Zurich, TU Berlin, MIT. So I think it's time to do it myself. And thanks to the Innovation Center, which has this amazing program. Yeah, finally did.
And you, Anton, what was your reason for?
I mean, for me, it was, I can say it's quite close to what Mohit said. I mostly work in applied science. And when I start to see that this technology can be really applied, we start with try to sell a license, maybe like licensing the technology. But because when we started, the market wasn't ready yet. And I bumped to the wall where the people was like, we don't understand why we need it. We don't need it, but yes, it's interested, but we're not sure, and so on and so on. But actually, I had this internal feeling that this particular technology in the food sector should be really important in the next few years. And that's actually, I decided that if nobody wants, like, if I can find somebody who can license it, I would like to try myself, because I want to see the end of, I want to see the product. I want to see how people use it. And because usually in science, when you do science, it's not really like that. You see only like maximum lab prototype, and then it's hand over to somebody else. Or in 95% of the cases, you just move to something else. You do something else, and then basically you have all unfinished products. And I realized that I don't want to do it anymore, and I want to move it to the next stage. And for us, likely, the market started to changing together with our attempt to get to that, because we saw how the company is changing their opinions from we're not interested to actually let's talk about this, to the we know the problem and let's discuss what we can do. And that's actually, for me, was the real, like, you cannot stop. It's like a drugs. Because when people tell you that we want it, you start to pushing it further up and up. Yeah. And it's kind of feelings which you can't mix, something new.
So I understand that that need to see all the effort that you put in creating value in the market. But let me ask you a little more personal question. This move, obviously, when you make this translation, and it does generate a lot of personal uncertainty, right? I mean, you're used to working in an organization. There is a certain environment that you're working in. There is what you would say, you are confident of the revenue that you're making every month. You get your salary, and you move into another environment where you suddenly start becoming not just responsible for yourself, but also for your team. So maybe Anton, you can go first, and then I'll ask Mohit to.
I would like to clarify a little bit, because we just been incorporated in October, like a few months ago. I'm still an employee of A-Star, and because we are pre-revenue and we are trying to now to get the funding, and at this moment, basically, the company is just as it's just start to growing a little bit, and it's more in a passive mode. That's why personally, I mean, our team is like 2/3 of the team is still A-star employees, but we will see how it goes. We try to move it forward, and I cannot say that I jump out, because unfortunately, Singapore is not a Silicon Valley, it's 80s, where I can rent a garage and live for like a few dollars a month. It's still a very expensive city. And I'm not sure I can survive.
So is there a criteria that you will use to decide when it is right for you to move?
Yeah, I mean that's actually stopping factor for me, and that's where the point where I 100% move to the company where we can make a revenue or get to be funded to cover a little bit of my salary, because otherwise because we're now spending our own pocket money and they burning very fast. Yeah.
But you have a slightly different story. You have actually now relocated to India. You're working out of there, though you started the company in Singapore. It's based out of Singapore. So, you were trying to raise funds when all of this happened. So, take us through your thought process.
So, yeah, so because of COVID, obviously the investors got cold feet. Right. And then I also stopped trying because I was not able to promise the kind of revenues or returns that they were expecting. So I was forced to rethink our revenue model, right? So I think one very important lesson in resilience is that you need to don't skip on thinking of your revenue model, right? Right now in your laboratory, you're getting this grant and everything, which is great, but the revenue model is also like a product. Like it takes time, it takes a lot of iterations to get it right. So start working on that too from day one. Because we didn't have that in place, we faced some challenges. Like, for example, the good thing is that India is not that expensive. So first few days during the lockdown, I and my partner, we didn't take any salary, but we kept paying the people who were working for us. But then later on, now that we have started making money, we take salaries. But so those are the sacrifices that we made. Thankfully, it was a lockdown and our spending was also almost nothing, just groceries and all that. So in a way, it was good. But yeah. So it's not, when survival is, once you start a company, you have not just think about your personal survival, but also your team's and the company's survival. And your net worth or your savings become the company's savings and stuff like that. So there's hard to now draw a line where something stops. Like Anton said that he's burning his own pocket money. And yeah, I've done that also to keep things alive. Have to be prepared for it.
So wasn't there any time during the past 18 months, 20 months where you felt that enough of this, let me go back and get into, you know, what I know I can do comfortably and where I can earn a regular income? Have you never felt that? Yeah, so salary is also like a drug, right? You get it every month. It's great. First of the month you get it, and you spend it on things you like. So that definitely, I had a thought that, okay, travel as a sector is not coming back anytime soon. Maybe I should do something else. But the thing is that what happened was that we were so in touch with our customers, right? And the customers had demands. Like they were asking, okay, which country is in lockdown right now? What are the travel restrictions right now? And we had built these relationships with our customers, and we wanted to. So that's been our philosophy from day one. They ask us and we build, right? So we always are talking to our customers. Like I personally have had like 5,000 conversations with our users during the pandemic, right? We have a chat box right in the product, inbuilt.
So we were like, okay, that people are still want they want us to serve them, right? So we wanted to build things, and it was the pandemic anyway. It's not like we had other dreams that, okay, maybe I want to join Google or whatever. So we wanted to see it through. And then it picked off. The COVID controls went viral. So we knew that we were building something of impact. So yeah, that kept us going.
So in both your cases, I see that, you started with the technology core, but then you decided to react to the market to make sure that it fits the market. Anton, can you take us through that entire process of pivot? When you're so deep, much more than Mohit, because I think in Mohit's case, the technology core still remained the same. He just looked at, how you were serving the customers differently. But in your case, you actually pivoted your technology. So was it easy to let go of what you were so close to because the market was telling you something else?
Actually, you're right. What I learned that deep tech startups is a little bit more heavy, because what we are facing now is like to start manufacturing, even a small scale product, we need laboratories, and unfortunately, I mean, it's not easy to find because we all in Singapore, it's a lot of restrictions. And I mean, luckily now we talk with StartCentral, and they have the space which fits our requirements. And in this case, it's much more difficult and more expensive to repeat it, because for us, it takes we've been lucky, and it takes for us 6 months to repeat it. But again, when we were pivoting, we had the smart funding, and we have resources. We have access to the equipment, to the lab, and this is a different story. I believe if it's a startup by its own, repivoting the deep tech, it's better to stay where you are. But in our case, it wasn't drastically repeated. We didn't change entirely the way we start to rethinking how we react on the market needs. And in our case, we actually moved from more complicated technology to much more simple option. That's why it was easier. And once we repeated and move from food freshness to the packaging integrity monitoring, for us, it started a new time, because now it's very easy to explain what we do. Because previously, discussions with the company was very complicated, because it's very difficult to explain how you measure the freshness, because everybody has own understanding. There is no more or less standard. And there is a standard provided by food authority, but it's more related to safety rather than the quality freshness. And now it's very straightforward. We can easily explain, the people understand what we do. And they, I think from the first time when we saw the bright eyes of the cold supply chain manager, and he started to imagine how he used our tools in his supply chain, that was the best time when we saw, because you see that the people already in mind start to implementing our technology in them daily work.
So interesting. So can I just ask, maybe you, Mohit, how difficult is it, because you have started making revenue, how difficult is it for you to generate revenue? Is it something that can happen on a consistent basis? What are the steps that you did when you moved into this phase? Did you actually go out and try and pursue to generate revenue, or was it serendipitous, saying that, oh, somebody had this need, then you had this product, and you said, okay, I can market it, and it evolved? Or did you, consciously think about these are the steps I need to do to get the revenue?
No, it was not conscious at all. So for example, for Escape, what felt like what was the obvious thing to do would be to make money from commissions from flights. And we did that, we implemented that. And then later on, we realized that these commissions are not big enough, right? So now what we did for Escape is we put it behind subscription, okay? Because we realized that this is a very unique product and now people are paying. So it took some learning, just like how a product feature iterates over time. So the revenue model also iterated. Same with COVID controls. COVID controls are actually free. We just put a donate button and people used to donate money for making COVID controls. But then people started asking for data and started hitting our servers for data, scraping data and all that. So we just created a page that, hey, listen, you pay $500 and you get the data for 6 months or whatever. So it was all very, it came naturally, like how to make money. And the first conscious thought was actually usually wrong, how to make money. So yeah, it's best to always talk to your customers and see exactly what they're willing to pay for. They're willing to use a lot of things for free, but there are very few things they're willing to pay for, and we need to identify that.
In fact, I remember a lot of our conversations revolved around your B2C model versus a B2B model. You're now almost practically a B2B company. You're developing solutions for even other travel organizations, right? So, so tell us a little bit about that.
So initially, when I was reaching out to people with the COVID controls data, one of the companies said that, okay, we want to, so these guys are basically the content providers of the industry, okay? So they were like, okay, let us take this data from you and we'll become your champions. We'll distribute the data and we'll pay you for this content on a regular basis. But the thing is that COVID restrictions were so dynamic and countries are changing border restrictions so quickly. And there are travel bubbles, travel corridors, all that. So doing that became too difficult. So they were like, okay, we definitely need this expertise, right? What you have built with Escape, what you have built with COVID controls, we need a team. And since right now there's the pandemic going on, why don't you guys help us build so-and-so? Like, for example, for Escape, we built this caching system for flights, and they wanted something like that. So, so that's how the conversation started going. And now, yeah, we are making much more money on the B2B side than the B2C side, and which I'm glad, because that's now how we survive. Didn't plan for that, but you have to do some things to survive. So yeah.
Can I ask the audience to start posting the Q&A? I will ask one more question and then I will open it up to the audience. So please do start posting your questions. Anton, one question to you. I know you've moved from being a freshness label, which is what we talked about, and we love that name. You know, when you came up with it during the boot camps, the freshness label company. To now being a company that looks at packaging integrity. How do you see yourself evolving as you go along? Do you see newer revenue streams? Do you see other opportunities that are opening up in food, in other spaces? What do you see?
Yeah, we actually, it's true. As I think I'm talking the whole day today about the changing from food freshness to the packaging integrity, and no, it's still we broaden our potential market, because potentially the packaging is not only the food market; it's everywhere. It's electronics, medical, it's like different kind of packages. And but we are focusing on the food because we still mostly focus on the food because that's the hottest topic, and that's where our technology will be giving more benefits for anything else. And because it's a lot of liabilities from both sides, because when the package is leaking and consumers start to eat the food which is getting spoiled, basically, which is not good, and it's all about health and so on. But what I would like to, I had some thoughts a few days ago after our first discussion, and regarding repivoting. I had this thought that actually we initially, when we start to think about the food freshness, I think like 99% people of 100 told us what we do, it's nobody needed, and it's like wasting of time and so on. But we had this feeling that it's not correct, and we never listened for them. And we actually repivot, not because the people don't want our technology, but because we repivot, we see that they say, yes, what you do is interesting, but it's a little bit too early. Let's try to do this one first, because it's like essential need for today. Because first we figure out if the package is sealed, then we move to the second stage, if try to measure the food is fresh or not. And we still have this in our mind for the future, to move from like just to be a company who producing sensors for packaging integrity, moving towards dynamic expiry day labels. But it will take longer time and longer journey.
So I have some questions from the audience. So I think the first one is more appropriate for you, Anton. So I will ask you that question first. The question is, does the startup have a full-time CEO, even during passive mode? Without a full-time CEO or CTO, wouldn't that impede fundraising? So this question is more related to, how are you going about raising your funds? And if you don't have a full-time CEO, how do you answer the VCs?
Okay, that's a very good question, because I'm still an employer of A-Star, and I'm very thankful for that, because that's basically the best support they can give. And based on our policy, as a technology developer, we can do a spin-off companies, and the transitional stage, of course, I'm not allowed to be a director. I'm not allowed to get any salary. I cannot get much involved in the company, rather than consulting and transfer technology from A-Star to the spin-off. That's why we have a CEO who is a director, and this person is outside of, he's not related to, it's a business guy, and he will deal all the discussion and so on. Because if you look deeply, even I'm a shareholder, I cannot have any discussion between A-Star and a spin-off, whichever related to the finance, licensing, and so on. I'm actually responsible only for the technical part, and based on our policy, we're allowed to provide consultation, and we are considering a few options, because a few options are available. Is first of all, we can take the how it's called, basically you start to work like 50% in A-Star and 50%.
Are you talking about the
no, not TIAP. TIAP, it's applicable only if in a case I'm not a shareholder, because if I'm shareholder, it's not applicable to me anymore. Secondment. There is a secondment program for 2 years. It can be, but it's upon to decision approval of the institute. Yeah, at this moment, we're in transitional stage. There is no money. We just try to push it out, looking for investors and so on. And that's why there is no conflict of interest at the moment.
And your CEO takes all the investor meetings, and he leads.
Yes, correct. Yeah, he leads all discussion, and I'm not allowed to make any decisions there, because I'm kind of passive. I can tell only for technology side and
Can I
how
just
to
ask one question,
yeah.
Anton? How did you find the CEO? Where did you find it?
Okay, I think the Krish was kind of part of this journey because for us it was the most difficult part to build a team. I mean, we had a great technical team and we tried to find somebody who trusts us and we trust them and we work together. And we had, during the Smart, I think we have 2 attempts. Before Smart, I have another 2 attempts, but for some reasons, I mean, some attempts collapse at the beginning discussion, some attempts actually lasting for a longer time, but because it's all human factor. And in some cases, people change their mind because they get the offer from other job, which is well paid. And it's basically a luck. It's a luck, and we're very lucky that we find our CEO, and he's kind of this startup mood, and he has like another startup. He just successfully exit from his previous IT startup, and it's kind of his part of his lifestyle. That's why we're happy. I think another option for the people who would like to take the same journey, like be a passive kind of startupper. It's work with incubators. I think we try to, I remember we have a very good discussion, and a few discussion goes very deep with buzzing innovation. I think the Smart Innovation Center is also collaborating with them. This is a very good option, and but in our case, kind of we find our own way. I definitely recommend to talk to them. I think they have a few options as well. Yeah, it's all possible.
The next question, I think I'll channel to you, Mohit. It's about what happens in a startup. The question is, when it comes to adapting or pivoting the direction of the company due to rapidly changing environments, how do we make sure that the new direction is something we can pull off successfully? So how did you know that you could do what you did and it would become successful? Is it just trial and error, or did you have some confidence?
It's similar to why do you do something on the first time, rather, and why would you pivot? Like, you need to really be in touch with the market. And this time when you're pivoting, you have one more advantage, that you have learnings from your previous this thing. So, and again, this time you know that, okay, what are the things that matter the most and where we went wrong previously. So yeah, I think talking to customers and figuring out the business model beforehand, those are the things I think would help you the most to validate. So do as much validation as before you pivot, and listen to your team, the market signals. Just keep your eyes out,
But when you move to the COVID-19 visualization that you were doing, you never knew that you would make money out of that, right?
Yeah, so that was actually more for keeping the team motivated. My goal during pandemic, right, was to really stay relevant, and so that the teams also stays motivated, because it was a very bleak period. Okay, travel startups were dying, and there were people were getting laid off and everything. So I needed a story to tell, as something that people would be excited about, like in my team. And it's a very different case here. It's not quite a pivot, because Escape was doing great. So we didn't need to pivot at the time, but the circumstances were such that we were forced to do something else, because it didn't make sense for us to continue building something, because we don't know how the post-COVID world is going to be like in travel, right? We don't know that. So we don't know when it's going to come back, and how are people going to change their behaviors, nothing. And when behaviors change, your products could be completely irrelevant. So yeah, we didn't want to continue building Escape like that. So that's why we thought that, okay, we are getting way too many requests for this. And that is something that I think will keep the team motivated, because it's the need of the hour. There was nothing like that. We were the first COVID-19 dashboard for travel. That's why we got featured everywhere, and also went viral and everything. So yeah.
Okay, let me see. There's one more question that has come up. Yeah. So, so let me ask this to you again, Mohit. Most funding sources want to see something working before they are willing to fund. So how can a startup that requires funding to get things working acquire funding? So
who hasn't got things working?
No. So he's saying that if you really want to get funding, then the expectation of the investor is that you've got something that is working. But to get something working, you need some funds. So it's a chicken and egg. So how did you go about doing it?
That's why we have the Smart Innovation Grant. Okay, right. So because I'm guessing most of the audience are not entrepreneurs before, they're all researchers or technical people. The investor is not going to give you money just because you have an idea or a vision. Only people who are like serial entrepreneurs and have proven entrepreneurship experience are able to raise funds without showing anything, right? Like Elon Musk, tomorrow, if he goes and starts another company, he can raise millions of dollars because he has already proven. So similarly, I think for you guys, for the investor to trust you, you need to show something that is going to, to establish some trust, right? And it could be either that if you don't have anything working, then you can probably prove to him that, okay, you are the best in the field, for example, there is nobody else like you. Or the market that you're going after is something so unique, and only your lab is working on that, and you have that knowledge to go after it. So if you don't have anything working, you need to establish that trust in some other way. And if you want to build something without funding, it really depends on your business, because like for the internet company, building something requires very less investment, right? So you can prototype something with very little money. And there are so many people around the world you can collaborate with, thanks to remote work and everything. You can find cheap talent elsewhere also. But if you're doing something like Anton, like you're manufacturing something, you need a factory, laboratory, and everything, then I would say not go with a bigger VC, because VCs will not invest at that stage. So you go after smaller investors who believe in you, right? And raise smaller amounts of money just to get you to that point where you are able to go after VCs. So yeah, so look for small amounts of money, I would say, in that case. Yeah. Or invest your own money if you're really confident about it.
Good advice. Anton, you want to share your perspective?
Yeah, Mohit is right, because as deep tech startups, we require a lot of cash flow because everything is very expensive. And in Singapore, there is a very good, the option at having just an idea and try to pivot to the VCs is basically dead end, because nobody talk to you. But Singapore has a few options, like if you're employer of, like if you're in university or A-Star or high learning institutes, you can get the internal funding, or you can go through SMART or NRF. There is a gap funding, central gap. There are some options. And if we're outside of this community, then there is ESG, Enterprise Singapore. They have definitely two options for one option for startup, which is called proof of concept. But again, depends. It's limited by, you cannot ask endless amount. Like if you think you need like $5 million, nobody give you. That's why it's limited by investment, and you have to figure out how to squeeze in this amount. But I believe that actually once you get the first funding, like for example from ESG, which lead you to the first prototype, then going to VC might be already reasonable. But that's exactly where our startup right now, where because we have only kind of technology and we show that it could be applied, could be worked, but it's still like a lab prototype. So maybe it's not even the prototypes, it's just small demos, and to do the showing to the company, because the company already wants something like really working. They don't want something built like on your labs and like we do in our laboratories. And this is still require a lot of investments to go through.
So we are now at the very end of the session. So there is a question from one last question to you, Anton, and then we will close all questions. Anton, do you plan to go full time into your startup, and do you consider taking up the CTO position?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, that's the plan. But at this moment, as I just mentioned at the very beginning, the first we have to start the company, get like 1 or 2 employees to run it, and when it will be a little bit stable, the plan is to go full time to the company. But I see we will have like 1 or 2 years transition period, because it is very heavy, I mean, in technology. And if I had choice 10 years ago, I might make a choice towards the rather IT, because it's much easy. I mean, it's not super easy, but it's still like not so related to the facilities you need. Because if you need like a special lab where you can run your synthesis, that's not many options in the whole country, other than you have to build your own, but it's like, it's ridiculous amount of money.
Okay, let me just take that same question to Mohit. And so we have some perspective of how you look at your future over the next year or two. Mohit, as the last question to close out, where do you see yourself, and what are the things that you will be doing over the next 1.5 to 2 years?
I am really excited about the post-COVID world. I think it's going to bring new travel behaviors, just new behaviors in all markets. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So there's a lot of pent-up demand for a lot of things, right? So I'm quite excited about that. Hopefully the vaccination programs are all successful, and yeah.
Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you very much for your time. It was an interesting talk. I hope the audience also enjoyed listening in to this. It's been turbulent times. It's good to see people taking technology out and staying the course to make sure that it is successful. Wish you all the best, and may the tribe increase. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Krish.
Thank you, Krish.